Hi friends, it's Miss Jenna, and today we're going to be doing a reading and an art activity, all based on the summer reading program theme of Imagine Your Story. This time, it's all about dragons. There's a dragon in your book, written by Fletcher and illustrated by Greg Abbott. Oh look, there's an egg in your book. It looks ready to hatch. Whatever you do, don't turn the page. Should I turn it? Okay. I can't believe you did that. The egg hatched and now there's a dragon in your book. Don't be scared, it's a baby dragon. Go ahead and tickle her little nose. Achoo! Oops! The dragon accidentally sneezed a fire in your book. We need to put it out quickly. Help dragon blow out the flame and turn the page. Guys, help me blow. Gosh. Oh no! Your dragon didn't blow out the fire. She blew more fire. Carefully cover the flames by turning the page and tamp it down. That should put them out. Whew. It didn't work. They're getting bigger. Don't get too close. If only we could think of a way to put out this fire. That's it. Let's use your imagination to put out the fire. Imagine a great big water balloon right in the middle of the next page. Make sure it's full and ready to pop. Perfect. Now use your finger to pop the balloon and get ready for the splash. Hooray! You put out the fire. Give the dragon a high five. You have a great imagination, and dragon must be a little hungry now. Why don't you use your imagination again and think up a yummy treat for her? How about a triple scoop of yummy ice cold chocolate and strawberry ice cream with sprinkles? Wow, that looks delicious. Yum. Well, dragon must be tired after all that adventure. I think it's time for her to fly home. She's probably very full. She's going to need some help taking off. Flap the book up and down like giant dragon wings. Let's try it. Almost there. Keep flapping. Keep flapping. Maybe you guys can flap your arms at home to help the little dragon. Oh, gosh. There she goes. Goodbye, dragon. Wave goodbye and turn the... Hang on a second. What's this? Oh, look! More eggs. Whatever you do, don't turn the page. Uh-oh. I think it's time to close the book. Carefully. In this activity, we're going to create our own dragon using painted papers. So painted papers is essentially experimenting on paper using whatever materials that you have on hand. I'm going to be concentrating on watercolor experiments today, but if you have tempera paints or if you have daubers, anything that's a liquid paint, then go ahead and use those as well. Basically, this type of project is an invitation to create. So sometimes just having the materials available for your child is enough for the creativity to really get going and for your kids to get really excited about what they're working on. So for right now, I have my watercolor palette. I have my liquid watercolor, which is here. And I also have a spray bottle. I have table salt. I have my water for my palette. I have a watercolor brush, and I have a paper towel. So I have 4 pieces of watercolor paper in front of me. Watercolor paper is nice and thick, so it is absorbent and it will not buckle as much as a lighter paper would. A heavy cardstock would also work. So I'm just going to start experimenting, and I think that on my 4 pieces, I'm going to try to have kind of a different color story. So to start, I'm going to get my brush nice and wet, and maybe I'll start with my palette. So in your palette, you want to really move your wet brush all throughout to really get it as saturated as you can with the pigment. But you don't want to give your brush a bad hair day, so you still want to be gentle, and I'm moving in a circular motion all in the same direction so that my hair on my brush is still nice and clean and neat. And I'm just going to start painting. I really love the way this color looks on this paper, and green happens to be my favorite color, so maybe I'm a little partial. I'm going to get some of that pigment out by really thumping it against my water and tapping it onto my paper towel. And I'm going to grab some color out of my liquid watercolor as well. I'm just using an ice cube tray to keep all of my colors separate. If you don't have liquid watercolor, something that you can also use is just a little bit of food dye with water. It's the same thing. So I'm really just kind of gonna spread that around. Maybe I'll spray a little bit, and you can see that it creates these blooms and this veining, and I have it on top of this tray so that I can really start to move it around. So you want to set up a safe place within your home where your kids can be a little bit messy and not have to worry so much about being neat. I really like these trays for that reason. This can also be an outside activity, so you can just take this outside. I have a little bit of table salt, and whenever I drop it on top of my paint, it starts to crystallize and really pull that moisture into the salt. So when this dries, you'll see the full effect. So I have my green piece of paper here, and I think now I'll do like a red or a warm. But next I want to use my oil pastel. So this is Crayola brand. You can also use any crayon. Basically, I just want to try to do a resist. So I have my pink, and I'm going to use the side just to get this broad kind of rubbing. I really like the texture that comes through. Maybe I will grab a little purple, do a little scribbling. So this is an activity that the absolute youngest learner will be excited with. So if you give a 1-year-old, certainly a 2-year-old, a paintbrush and some watercolor, they're gonna have a lot of fun, especially if you give them a spray bottle. But you just want to make sure with the spray bottle that they're not getting the watercolor too wet or the paper too wet. If they do, it's not that big of a deal. It's just gonna curl up, and you're going to want it to give it a little bit more time to dry. As you can see with this experiment, all of the wax is resisting the water because the water and oil won't mix together. So it's really repelling the water away, and it's creating all of this really beautiful detail work and texture. Let's see what else we can do. Let's make this paper wet. I'm gonna spray this paper. And I don't know if I've used this color yet. Oh, good. So when I put the blue on the puddle, it's really blooming out, and it's finding that water, and it's trying to stay within that water. And you can tell that it's not going beyond the reach of that water. So it's not going onto this wet part of the paper. So I can really tell it as the artist where I want the paint to go. And maybe on that one, I'm kind of inspired by that shape that's occurred. So I'm going to just kind of get my oil pastel and start to scribble on this one too. Now with this project in particular, you do want to encourage your kids to cover as much of the white as possible. And I usually frame it as an art challenge. So your challenge, if you choose to take the challenge, is to cover as much of this white as possible. Is it possible? And I haven't had any artists tell me, no, that's not possible. And for this last one, I'm going to try a little bit of splatter, but more of a controlled splatter. So I'm going to grab some paint. I'm going to put it over my dry paper, and I'm just going to gently tap. Now this is a concept that probably a 3 or a 4-year-old can understand. Anyone younger than that isn't really going to understand the gentle tap. So that's why if you're outside, you can kind of let your wrist fly and your kids can kind of go crazy with the splatters. Once you start splattering, it's really hard to stop because it's really fun. I have my spray bottle, and I'm gonna spray on top, and you can tell that all of these channels of water are really just trying to grasp each other. So now I have all of my paintings on one tray, and I can put this outside to dry a little faster. If your artists are really impatient, you can just zap it with the hairdryer for a few minutes, and it's all ready for our next step. So now I have my dried painted paper, and I am going to create a collage on this cardboard of a dragon, and it's something that is my own dragon, and I'm going to come up with the story of my dragon. And I'm going to use simple shapes. So I think I'm going to start with the body. So I have this rectangle right now, but I need to transform it into another shape. So I think that I'm going to create a triangle for my body, for my dragon. It's not a perfect triangle, and that's okay. I think that is what makes it really fun. And let's see, I could put it any way. I think I'll try it with this one. So I have my glue, and I spread it all over the back of my painted paper, and I'm just kind of pressing it, massaging it onto my structure. Now, what can I use with the rest of these? Let's see, maybe I'll just kind of layer this. Maybe this body is going to be like a 3-segmented body, kind of like an insect. So I'm going to lay that one on top of that one. And I have this one. Come next to this one. So it's kind of reminding me of maybe like a Chinese dragon now. So now I want to do the head. So I think I'm going to do something similar to a crocodile head, where I'm going to start with this acute triangle, and then I'm going to cut inward and cut a smaller triangle within that one. And so I have this big head, and it's going to be exploding off of my cardboard, and that's perfectly fine. So as you're working, you might just need to keep pressing this down. You can also use a stronger glue, like an Elmer's glue, or you can even, with the help of an adult, use a hot glue gun. So now I think I'll do the tail, add some spikes to that, and have that come off as well. So some other things that I might want to consider on my dragon are the feet, wings. Is there fire coming out of the mouth? Does it have a really long tongue? Is it spiky? Does it have scales? Does it have feathers? Is it made of molten lava? So there are a lot of questions that you might ask yourself, and that will help you decide what your dragon looks like. My dragon right now is reminding me of something that kind of flew out of a volcano because of the colors. So right now I have my head, I have the 3 segments of the body, I have a tail, and I have my wing. And at this point, I might do some legs. I might decide that I want to add an eye that is sort of like a football shape with that sort of serpent eye. I might want to highlight the shape of my dragon by using my oil pastel or my crayon or my marker and outlining it, or creating some additional color with the side of my oil pastel. Maybe I want there to be sort of like clouds, so I'm going to use a lighter color and create some shapes down here. highlighting that with my original color. And this can really go any way that you want to. If you want a really large canvas to work from, you can use a really big piece of cardboard or some rolled paper. There are really no limits to this project. And you can even cut out eyeballs or different body parts or features from magazines and include those as well. And you can also, for our older learners, turn this into a three-dimensional project. So I have here my three-dimensional dragon, and I was able to create him with the same exact materials. And this watercolor paper is strong enough that it really can hold its own. But on top of creating the aesthetics and combining all of these materials and these shapes in a collage, you also have to consider the engineering. So how am I going to make this dragon stand up? Should I cut slits? Should I make tabs? I also used my tail as an additional sort of pillar to keep my dragon upward. So this is definitely something that includes problem solving on the part of the artist and sometimes some collaboration with the parents as well. I had a lot of fun doing this today, but I'm even more excited to know what you'll come up with on your own.